Good evening, and welcome to the third episode of the Mo Show. We're really excited about tonight's guest. He's a really good friend of mine. I affectionately call him Big Bro, a mentor to me, and I'm very excited to have him. He hails from Orangeburg, South Carolina. He went on to defy the statistics and go to Yale University and Georgetown Law. I'm talking about this guy is really smart, and trust me, I know from personal experience. He knows what he's talking about. So I'm very excited to have with me again my big bro. Y'all know him as City candidate running against Lindsey Graham here in South Carolina, Jaime Harrison. How you doing, big bro?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Man, doing outstanding, man. Doing outstanding. Just, happy to have another episode of this and be able to converse with you tonight. I think we're going to have a really good show and people are going to enjoy what we got going on. So I think we should just jump right into it, man.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm so happy to be the third member or the third episode of the Mo Show.
Absolutely. It's pretty cool. And again, we got to get creative, as you know, how we engage with our constituents, given the pandemic and the new campaigning that we all have to do, the new normal for everyone in general. But nonetheless, we're going to have fun tonight. And I say we go ahead and get into it, and let's just do it. So, I just gave a little bit of your background and some of your accomplishments, which all are great. But I really want to know, who is Jaime Harrison? And I'm not talking about a stump speech, but I want to know who you are. I want to hear about what you got going on, why do people should vote for you. I don't want to hear anything about that. I just want to know, who is Jaime Harrison? Who are you?
Well, first of all, man, I'm just a round-headed boy from Orangeburg, South Carolina, who as you know, we got a very similar background. My mom was very young when she had me. She was 16, and so I was raised by my grandparents primarily in Orangeburg. We didn't have a whole lot. It was tough. When you're in it, you don't know how much you don't have, right? All you know is that sometimes things are tough. Sometimes the things you want, you can't get. Sometimes, things like the fact that your light's off, right? You think, the light's off, you deal with it. And so now in retrospect, since I've gotten out of that, the perspective of knowing, man, we had it tough. It was tough. Mo, I remember mornings, man, getting up to go get a bowl of cereal. And, I love like Fruity Pebbles and Captain Crunch and all that other stuff. But I go to the fridge to get some milk, and there's no milk in the fridge, right? So I'm pouring water in my cereal because that's all I got. I remember days digging in couch cushions, trying to find, my grandfather needs to go to work. His gas tank's on empty. He needs to get a gallon of gas. So I'm digging in the couch cushions looking for a quarter, a nickel, or a dime, something that's falling out of people's pockets and maybe in the couches that he can use to get just a gallon of gas. And, it was those things that defined me or defined my experience. But at the same time, I've always been a kid that was just interested in learning. I love reading from a very early on. It was comic books. It was I would go to the library, and my grandma would just drop me off at the library on a Saturday morning. I just love that. And so, that kid is still who I am today. I still love learning. I still love comic books. I still love cartoons. I watch them with my sons. And I still love to learn. And that's a great thing on this campaign. I learn each and every day just from talking and interacting with folks. So it just gives you a little glimpse into who I am.
Man. And, that's very cool. And what really stuck out about what you were saying, you mentioned that we have similar backgrounds, which is true. My mom had me X16 as well. And matter of fact, she had 4 boys by the age of 20. She really don't like me telling that, but it's the fact that it is the truth, and it's a testament to who she was as a woman and her wisdom to raise us all the way that she did. And you're right though, like going through those hard times, you don't necessarily realize they're hard times until you're adult as we are now and can look back and reflect over the sacrifices that, your mom, your grandparents, and your village helped to raise you into that individual, that we are today. And so it just made me think about, all the times that we moved. And it's kind of funny. One of my good friends, Pierre Andrews, he came home with me my freshman year from college, and maybe not my freshman year, it was either my freshman or sophomore year. And we had went to like a little nightclub for college people, and everyone knew me. And he was like, well, Mo, how in the world how do everybody know you in here? And I was like, well, I went to school with all of them because we was moving around as youngsters, and we was in Greenville, we was in Easley, we was in Anderson, we was in Belton, doing what we had to do just to survive. But going back through it, you don't think about it in those terms. But it's real cool to know that, both yourself, both and myself was able to defy the statistics and not let that be indicative of what success that we have. So I really do appreciate you allowing us to know who Jaime Harrison is. I think it's very important as we go. And go ahead.
Well,
got a question?
Well, Mo, I know you probably can relate to this, and I can too. So when we talk about some of these things and statistics, and we look at poverty and we look at crime and the things that happen, those aren't just things that we read in books or read in a newspaper or watch on TV. Those are some things that we can relate to in terms of seeing it with our own eyes, sort of smelling it, tasting it, right? And I think it's those types of experiences that are unique that would make us better legislators as a result of that.
Sure.
I remember when I was on Capitol Hill and we would talk about things policy-wise. Like, for instance, take the SNAP program, food stamps, right? And for some folks, that is an academic discussion. They are well-intentioned. They understand. They want to do the right thing. But when it comes to how that will impact families and what are the stigmas related to that and all that, they can't relate to that. Right. But I would be that one person in the room who say, you know what? I actually grew up. We were on food stamps for a little while, so I know about that. I know about public housing and how that impacts and the difficulties and how the rules and regulations are and how they divide families as a result of that.
For sure.
And so it's those types of experiences that I think we bring that will make it even better for not just poor Black folks, but poor white folks, working class Latino folks, all of these people we have here in the state who don't feel like there's somebody right now like them who can represent them and their interests in D.C.
Absolutely. And, even thinking back to food stamps and my family of three, which my mom, like I said, had 4 boys, but the youngest son stayed with his father, had 3 boys in the house, working 2 jobs, making a little below $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
We didn't qualify for food stamps. Yeah. We got reduced lunch, which was, some help, but you still was paying for that lunch. And I distinctly remember, hearing people speak of folks who were on food stamps and belittling them and the confidence and the energy that you need to have as you're going to school, but people get wind of that and they can pick on you and what that means. So there's so many different layers to that, to understanding what SNAP is and how it one helps and hurts and add additional stigmas to individuals as they're trying to grow through life. And it can hold people back, but it also can put food on the table. So having that debate and having that understanding definitely will help us as legislators as we move forward to this next phase. After you beat Lizzie Graham and I go on to conquer Ralph Norman in this election here. So definitely happy to hear a little bit about who Jaime Harrison is. And I think it's great for everyone to understand that as well. Going to switch subjects a little bit here and have a little fun and do some rapid fire questions for you. You ready? You ready for these? It's going to be quick.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready.
All right, cool. What are your streaming pleasure TV shows right now?
For me, Picard. I don't know if you're a Trekkie. I'm a Trekkie. I love Star Trek, Next Generation and all. my wife has this crush on Patrick Stewart, who is Jean-Luc Picard, the captain of the Enterprise. And so there's a new CBS series on Picard that my wife and I just absolutely love.
That's what's up.
So
Okay.
That's my guilty pleasure right now.
Perfect. All right. Favorite podcast?
Well, you would probably think it's some like political podcast, but it's not. It's actually Tracks to Relax. It is a sleep meditation podcast. Not only did I listen to it, but my wife and my 5-year-old, we all listen to it. It's you need some to get to sleep. Try Tracks to Relax.
Okay, that works. That works. How about your favorite movie?
Coming to America, Eddie Murphy, hands down. And so right now, apparently, Eddie Murphy's working on Coming to America 2.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. And let me tell you, I cannot wait. I will be there. I'll be the first person at the movie theater right there with my bucket of popcorn.
I guess we got to figure out what movie you're going to when we open back up, because I'll join you. All right. Favorite video / board game, whatever works for you.
I would say board game, old school Monopoly. Video game, one of my favorite games in college was NBA Live 98. And
NBA Live 98. James, dude, you said
NBA Live 98.
That's not to say it's 2K. It's 2K now. It's 2K.
Yeah, I know it's 2K. That's not to say, but I'm just saying we had some old school battles in my college room of NBA Live 98. So much trash talk, man.
Yeah. And
to this day, I still have my version of NBA Live. Now, I don't have the game system to play it on anymore, but I still got the disc upstairs.
Oh wow, that's cool. That's cool.
I'm waiting on. I got a PS4, so I'm waiting on the new system that's coming out. I'm hoping it takes us to the next level, but we'll see.
Okay. They haven't let us down yet. They've gotten better about every version of it. So next thing you know, we're going to be inside of the TV playing the game ourselves. So I think
I know, man. I know.
Favorite subject in school?
I would have to say history and government.
Okay.
Just always been big. Now, at one point, I thought growing up that I was going to be a scientist because I love science, particularly in middle school as a kid. But once I got high school, it was history and government.
Okay, cool. I got a couple more for you. Favorite restaurant, favorite fast food option, those two.
Restaurant, Earl Duke's Barbecue in Orangeburg. I got to get at least once a year, I got to go home to Orangeburg and go to Earl Duke's Barbecue because, nothing beats the pulled pork, nothing beats the fried chicken, even the pork skins with their little sauce on it. Man, I'm a big Earl Duke's fan.
Okay.
In terms of fast food, I don't eat much fast food now. But, if I had to go to a burger place, I would probably do, out of the big ones, Burger King.
Okay, perfect. How's your golf game?
Yeah, I got clubs, and that's all I can say.
All right, well, that's a good thing. I think a lot of your constituents probably approve of that. So good. And then the last one, dinner with three. I'm sorry.
I said our current center golfs too much.
Right, exactly. Dinner with three famous people who could either be dead or alive.
Martin Luther King, Abraham Lincoln, and he's famous to me, my grandpa, who passed away back in 2004. So.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Man. Well, good stuff. I'm glad you indulged that fast and rapid question section. Just want to lighten it up a little bit, but we're going to kind of turn the dial here and get into some serious talk. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. You have more experience in politics than I do, and we both are two black men running for federal office in the state of South Carolina as Democrats. If elected, we will join Jim Clyburn as a Democrat and Tim Scott as a Republican representing South Carolina in the federal level. did you think about that any as you go through this process and the significance thereof, and even standing on the shoulders of someone like Jim Clyburn and seeing what he was able to do for Joe Biden this past primary?
I have thought about it a lot recently, and you have to think about, one of the things that's important is to think about the history of the state, the history of the positions that we're in. So, I did research to figure out who sat in the seat that I'm running for before Lindsey Graham, right? It was before Lindsey, it was Strom Thurmond. Before it was Strom Thurmond, it was somebody called Ben Pitchfork Tillman, who we know the atrocious things and beliefs he had, particularly in terms of the perception of African Americans. And so this would be a big deal. Historically, it would be a really, really big deal for me to be elected in this position, and same for you, and it will really help to change the chapter that we are coming into here in South Carolina. That this is about the emergence of what I call the New South, and this New South is diverse and it's inclusive, and it's bold. It's about making sure that we're fighting for everybody, not just a select few, but all of us. And so, I learned so much about our state's history through Jim Clyburn and working in Clyburn's office. I learned that, before there was the Brown versus Board, there was Briggs versus Elliott, right? The seminal case to desegregate schools happened right here in Clarendon County, South Carolina, right? And most of the times you don't find out those type of things. I learned that before there was, I'm blanking. But I've learned so much about the history of South Carolina and the pioneers of the civil rights movement that were launched right here in South Carolina. And so, Mo, part of us doing this, win or lose, right? Part of us doing this is also laying the foundation for more history in the state. There are going to be so many young boys and girls who look like us, who've grown up just like us, that will look to our campaigns and use that as an inspiration for themselves, so that they understand that they're not defined by their skin colors. They're only defined by the limitations they place on themselves. Absolutely. And so that's what we're pushing for, man. That's why it's so important that we're doing this, even when you have the naysayers saying, oh, there's no way Mo can win. There's no way Jaime can win. And I tell folks all the time, my entire life I have been told by folks that I can't do something. And what they don't understand is that I don't allow those things to handcuff me to allow me not to do it. It actually inspires me to prove them wrong. Yeah. And so people say we can't do it. Well, what I can say back to them is watch us. Right. I think that's awesome. And, as I sit here and think about it, and even speaking with you and all the stuff that you've been able to accomplish in politics and, guiding and civil service to us as South Carolinians and us as Americans, I'm very honored and privileged to be able to do that. And then I think about myself and even my plight to the position that I am, and, dealing with no, you can't. I believe it when I see it. Who you think you are type sentiment towards you. It does add fuel to the fire, because what becomes very clear to me is I'm a reflection of those who have poured into me, my family, but even beyond my family, I'm talking about the extended communities, the teachers, the coaches, the folks that you just see in the grocery store that all just give you a little bit of push when there's doubt coming from whatever side that it may be coming from to continue to go on. And then thinking about, not going the sports route after I finished college. I tried to go to the NFL, didn't work, and I could have been a coach, could have did a lot of different things. But Robert Frost stuck in my head the road that's less taken, so that you can be an example for people who come from places like us that think that
the only way out is through sports or, entertainment of some function. And granted, I was able to utilize sports, but I also was able to go down the road to be a businessman. Charles Waddell, who's assistant athletic director at the University of South Carolina, who pushed me to go join the South Carolina Department of Commerce. He told me to go. I wanted to play football, and I finally ended up going. A couple of years later, he said something to me that was very profound. He said, "Mo, what you didn't understand then, that you understand now, or should understand now, is that you was always a first round draft pick, but it was in business." And when he said that, it really just shook me, because it hit me from a perspective standpoint. Like, how do you change the perspective of people? Well, you have to be that example. And so both you and I right now are trying to be another example of the evolution of what I believe is us moving towards a more perfect union. Having the diversity of us as America, but being better in the inclusion part. And so electing Mo Brown and Jaime Harris in South Carolina as Democrats in a Republican state, what does that say for the progression of not only this state, but this country? And that's something to be excited about. It's not something to look down on. That's something for us to come together and unify for those opportunities, because that is a sign of progression. And so that's how I see it from my end.
It is a demonstration that the American dream is still alive and well, because that's what the American dream is all about. It is, regardless of how you grow up, who you are, what you look like, who you pray to, who you love, that you can be the best person that you want to be. Like, all of the dreams and aspirations and goals, that you can go after it and unencumbered and just do what you want to do. That's what America's about, that freedom. And that's why I love this country so much, because the Mo Brown story, the Mo story, the Jaime story is not a story that, maybe our stories are not unique in America, but they are uniquely American stories, right? Because only in this country do you see folks like us get the opportunity to do what we're about to do right now. I mean, because I've gone all over the world, and people just fall out of their chairs when they say, "Are you sure you don't have a wealthy family member or somebody who in your family that was in politics or what have you?" Sure. I was like, no, right? But that's what America's all about. You don't need that in order to rise up to the very top of this nation. And that's why I love this country so much.
Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head with that very last sentence. That's why I love this country so much. I think too often as Democrats, we don't take enough ownership of our country and speak of those enduring terms. I get asked all the time, "Well, what's your why you're doing this?" And my first thing to come out my mouth every single time, because it's so true, is that because I love my state and I love my country. Because in my country, I have been able to take my very bad situation, by the statistics anyway, turn it into a situation where I'm sitting here at the age of 32 running for U.S. Congress. And that means something, and that excites me. So you can't tell me that my country isn't great. But at the same time, understanding that greatness you want to see to continue to progress. And so when we see we're dividing amongst each other, it's people like you and I and all across this country that must speak up and say, no, that's not America. Because united we stand, divided we fall. And,
Amen.
And we need to be united right now in this moment.
That is so true, man. That is so true. Well, I'm glad you're in this, man. I'm glad we're in it together.
Absolutely. We focused on you and I for a second, and we probably can touch on this very quickly. We don't keep people here too long. But we do have a great Democratic feel here. We have myself, you, we have Melissa, we have Kim, we have Adair, and we have Mark. All good people. What does it mean to you to have such a good slate of candidates running on the Democratic side?
It is from the very top to the bottom that we have such great candidates. And I really, I've been doing South Carolina politics now since I was 16. Okay. I have to say that I believe that this is probably one of the, if not the best slate of candidates that we've had since I've been in politics. Folks who are passionate, who are working their butts off to get out, talk to voters, and represent the interests of the people in the state. And it's not only the federal candidates. I mean, you take a look at some of these state house and state senate candidates are amazing candidates. Some of the folks running for sheriff and coroner around the. So it says to me that the bench is extremely deep in the state. There's some people who are impassioned. And I think all of us are listening to that old adage from Dr. King, which, you know, when he was in Birmingham jail, he said, we will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people. What I'm seeing by seeing these great candidates stand up is that good people are saying enough is enough. It's time for new leadership and a new vision for South Carolina. And that's what they're fighting for.
Absolutely. And I think that's spot on. That's what has led me to this position. And I think that's why so many people are going to pay attention to this race. And I think you need to, well, can you touch on how do people get involved? How do we get energized around this, and what is truly at stake here in 2020 and what we can be as South Carolinians?
Yeah. And, you know, man, it's all about hope. And, you know, our state motto is, while I breathe, I hope. It's about bringing hope back to these communities that have lost it, who feel like there's nobody fighting for them. There's no one that is listening to their hopes and their aspirations and their fears for their families and their communities and themselves and themselves. And so that's why we are in this. It is because we need to reflect. We need to be, you know, I'm a lawyer, but we all need to be advocates. We need to be voices for the voiceless.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of voiceless across South Carolina. And it's those people who haven't turned out historically to vote, who are so frustrated because they're working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And they feel like, you know, I got a congressperson who doesn't vote for relief when we have hurricanes, or I have senators who are stopping or demonizing me because I'm on unemployment. Instead of saying, what can I do in order to help these people? They feel like the folks that they have in Washington, D.C. are trying to harm them.
Right.
And that's where the change is. So I'm telling folks, join my effort, join your effort, go to JaimeHarrison.com, you know, go to your website and sign up, volunteer, and just be a part of the change that we need to happen here in South Carolina.
Absolutely. That is 100% correct. And the way I see it is that, you know, as Americans, we have a duty. We have a duty to make sure that we're exercising our right to vote. There is every reason, well, I can say every reason, there's a lot of reasons for individuals to have apathy towards government, much for the reason that you just outlined. But when government isn't working for you, you don't just acquiesce and go to the sideline and do basically what they want you to do by not being involved. That's the game, to keep you silent, keep you thinking that you can't do something about it. So right now in 2020, as we look at our nation in the middle of a pandemic crisis, unprecedented financial crisis, unprecedented health crisis, we need all our Americans in the game. And because leadership is on the ballot in 2020. And we must have the right leadership that can lead us forward, who are thinking about the people who haven't had the opportunity to progress in the way they should, because government has not supported the resources that was needed or have put up barriers for them to move forward. And the only way you can do that is people who have experiences that can relate and then have vision to actually put stuff on the table that solves those solutions. Solve those issues.
Yep.
I think if we do that, we're gonna have a really great opportunity to do something great. So we need you. We need you in the game. We need your support, and not only Jaime and I, but all these great candidates that's thinking about you first.
And Mo, you know, people need to understand, don't feel powerless, because this is your government. If your government is not doing what you want it to do, then you have the power to change that.
Yeah.
And that power takes place in June and it takes place in November, when you can go and vote for people in the primary, and then you can go and vote for folks again in the general election. But it's your government. And if you don't act, then you are giving your power to somebody else. And you're saying, act for me. And that person may not have your same values, may not have the same interests that you have. So you don't want to relegate yourself to that. Take the power back. Make the government do what you want it to do by sending people who reflect your values and your interests.
Exactly. It is the ultimate accountability card, and we don't have enough people participating to keep us as elected officials and those who are aspiring as officials accountable. That vote is exactly that. And a lot of our issues would be solved if we had more accountability by us, we the people. So let's make sure that we take that that accountability up on all levels. And I don't care who you vote for, to be honest with you. I want you to vote for me, obviously, but at the end of the day, vote. Just vote. Vote. Well, good stuff. You plugged your website, my website, moforcongress.com. I don't got Jamie Harrison money yet. I need Jamie Harrison money. So y'all
send Mo some money. Gotta
keep this thing running. But nonetheless, I know you. I want to do one last little transition here.
Yeah,
and we're gonna sign off for tonight. Tell me the 3 most important women in your life.
Oh man! So my triumvirate. First and foremost, my mom. Well, really, first and foremost, my wife, my mom, and my grandma. And this is it. So my wife is Mo. I know you're not married yet, but let me tell you, when you meet the right one, you will know it. And I met my wife. We had our first date that November, right after the election. We did a few more dates in December. I took her to inauguration stuff in January. And after that week of inauguration, I called my mom and I said, I found her. And I was already shopping for rings by March of that year. And we were engaged by August.
Wow.
Yeah, dude, let me tell you, my wife is today's Renaissance woman. She's a scholar, she's an artist, she's a writer, and she's a terrific mom. And so she's the rock of our family and invaluable to me. My mom and my grandma, before my wife, it was my grandma and my mom. And I cannot tell you how special they are.
Right.
The sacrifices they made. And so I'm a very, very fortunate and blessed man because of the 3 of them, and I don't forget it, and I praise God for it every day.
Absolutely, that's amazing. And if I was to echo some of that sentiment, my mom is my superhero. She's an amazing woman, and y'all will be hearing from her. And in addition to that, my granny and my auntie, both who just recently passed, but those 3 women in my life were literally my rock and my foundation, and I'm so grateful for the leadership that they've shown to help guide me into the man that I am. And I think it's important, us as men to talk very highly about the women, not only in our life, but in general in their contributions that they have on us and on society. Just as you spoke about your mother and your grandmother, but so highly about your wife as well. Those are very special things. So thank you for sharing that. I'm very excited. I don't know if we got any questions. Did we get any questions in the end? No questions? We get no questions? Okay. All right, perfect. Next time we're going to do this thing, we're going to take in some questions. We got a long road ahead. Really do want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Jaime, thank you for being on the show again. You big bro.
Thank you. Man. I'm proud of you, Mo. You keep doing it, man. You keep doing it. And I can't wait to call you my colleague in Congress.
Awesome, man. Likewise. And, South Carolina, let's make history. It's nothing to it but to do it. And I can tell you right now, you can't find a better man than Jaime Harrison to be your senator. He will put you first. He'll put the state first because he has done it his whole entire life. It's evident in the passion that he has for the state and the people of the state. So thank you for stepping up in the run. And we're gonna get to work and make this thing happen.
Thank you, man. Well, listen, one of my closest people I was to in Congress was John Spratt in South Carolina 5. And I can tell you, you would be, John Spratt would be so proud to have you be the guy who actually take the mantle from him. You cut from the same cloth. And I'm proud of you, man, and just continue to work hard. It'll pay off.
I will definitely do. Definitely do. Well, Jaime, I'm gonna get you to hang up, and I'm gonna say about 3 more words, and then
Thank you, brother. Take care now.
thank you for being on the show.
Okay. Good night.
Good night. So again, I just want to thank you all for being on the show tonight. Again, it was such a great conversation with Jaime, to hear his thoughts, learn a little bit more about who he is as a person and why he's doing what he's doing. As said through the interview, I want y'all to really understand that we really are doing this with you in mind, and that's not cliche, but we got to have the change. We got a great opportunity to do that right now. So pay attention, challenge yourself to talk more than 260 characters and start talking in paragraphs, and being less emotional and more practical and factual. I think if we do that, we got a really great opportunity to do something special, and I know we can. So again, thank you for listening. We're going to make sure that we have another episode for you next week. I think I gave a hint of who that may be, but stay tuned. We'll give you more information about that. But go to moveforcongress.com. Love for you to volunteer. Love for you to donate. Again, we have an uphill battle in defeating Ralph Norman, and that money is going to help us accomplish that goal of doing exactly that. So thank you in advance. Thank you for tuning in, and let's get to work.